Well, good morning. How are you all? Grateful. Yes, me too. Grateful. My mother reminds me every day of the power of gratitude. The minute she wakes up is thank you, God, for another day. She's 98, soon to be 99. And putting that in perspective, almost 100, being grateful for every breath, for every waking moment. We don't need to wait until we've aged to be grateful. We should be grateful for every day. So have you thought about at all things that you're grateful for? At all? Well, there's a story about a tailor in New York by the name of Mendel. And Mendel had $50. He could either buy groceries or buy a sign because business was waning. So he asked God. Now, Mendel was Jewish, so they don't call God God. It's G-D because God is breath. There's no word for it. It cannot be stated. So he asked GD, what should I do? Should I buy groceries for my family with this $50, the last money I have, or should I buy a sign to increase business? And if I buy the sign and business doesn't increase, then my family's going to starve. What should I do? And God says, Mendel, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Buy the sign. You'll be fine. He bought the sign and business picked up. He was so glad he listened to God. God answered his prayers. So then business picked up so well that he needed help. So he thought, well, I don't know if I can afford helpers. So he asked God again, should I get help or should I, shut down? And God says, no, get help. Hire help. You can do this. No problem. Mendel hires some help and business really goes through the roof. It's so much that he had to buy a bigger building, a storefront on Fifth Avenue, which was huge. So he asked God, I don't know if I can afford this storefront. I'm grateful for you answering my prayers so far, but I don't want to ask too much. Should I buy the storefront or, stay in this crowded place? We can't keep up with our business. I'll surely go out of business. Mendel, listen to me, God said. Buy the storefront. You'll be fine. He buys a storefront. Business just flourishes. So he said, God, I want to really show my appreciation, my gratitude for you blessing me so well. We are so prosperous. So I've decided that I'm going to name my store Yahweh and Mendel. And he said, God says, I don't like that very much. Let's use your last name and name it Lord and Taylor. Thank you, David, for that beautiful song, and Robert, and thank you, Michael, for lifting us up with Go Down Moses. I'm so excited to be here today to share with you about the proper way to experience real gratitude. So I brought with me the booklet that Unity published for this Lenten season. I don't know if you have it or not. If you don't, you can call Unity Village, call Unity World Headquarters, and ask to be connected to where you can get booklets. And they'll just take a love offering, whatever you have, or they'll send you a booklet if you don't already have it. But it's Fasting and Feasting, a Spiritual Practice for Lent 2019. And I wrote the article on Feast from Discontent and Fast on Gratitude. So when you go to that book, you'll find that. In the book, there's a 40-day practice for Lent. Now, we haven't talked much about the Easter holiday coming up or the Lenten season. 2 Sundays ago, Duke talked to us about hope. Hope. And last Sunday, Nian talked to us about belief. All leading us up to this Easter season. Hope and belief. So I want to talk to you about gratitude. And so Fasting and Feasting, the 40-day practice for Lent, adapted from William Arthur Ward, one of my favorite poets, reads, I fast from judging others. I feast on beholding the Christ in them. Is there anyone you've been holding in judgment? Now is the time to fast from judging others and feast on seeing the Christ in them. I fast from emphasis on differences, and I feast on the oneness of all life. Life is full of diversity, And when we only look at the outside and see the differences, we miss the opportunity to feast on all the great blessings we get from such diversity. Diversity in our environment and nature, in other people. I think it's so beautiful that we see such differences, such an array of the beautiful bouquet that God has set before us. I fast from apparent darkness and I feast on the reality of light. One of the first things we read in the book of Genesis when God spoke the world into existence is, let there be light. Let there be light. We create as co-creators. We create light in our worlds, and we can create darkness. So why not create light? I fast from thoughts of illness, and I feast on the healing power of God. Now, you may be going through a difficult physical experience, and it's so easy to feast on what's wrong in your life, what hurts, the doctor's diagnosis. Maybe a friend or a family member has been diagnosed with an illness, and you're constantly replaying that and wondering what's going to happen. Rather than feast on the negative, how about fasting on the healing power of the Almighty Spirit, that same power that lives in you? I fast from words that pollute, and I feast on phrases that purify. We know that words have power. So we fast from saying things that hurt and harm, and feast on speaking words that empower and raise up and lift up. I won't read the whole thing to you, but today's is, I feast from discontent. I fast from discontent, and I feast on gratitude. In that song, David mentioned all kinds of things. We have a roof over our head. We can worship as we choose in peace. We have volunteers on this staff who make sure everything is ready for us, not just on Sundays, but every day of the week that people come to this temple for various services. We have a wonderful choir and musicians who lift our spirits with their talents. We have an excellent senior minister whose consciousness lays the groundwork for the spirit of Unity Temple. We have a board of directors who make sure it's transparent to all of you, but they make sure that everything that needs to be done to keep this temple flourishing is done. We have volunteers who clean on their own. They clean up after the service. If you drop something or if something's out of place, they make sure it's all put into place. We have people who love all of us so much that they do this every day of the week. They dedicate their time. And sometimes it goes unnoticed, an opportunity for us to express gratitude. So when you go in the bookstore or you see one of the staff or you happen to talk to one of our choir members or our musicians, take the time to tell them you're grateful. Look around in this congregation. Look for somebody whose eye contact you can get and let them know just through your eyes that you're grateful. You're glad they're here today. Sometimes people live alone or they don't have someone to tell them, I appreciate you, I see you, I'm glad you're here, I'm grateful that we're here together. Something so simple as that can be a feast for someone. This is Women's History Month, and I want to recognize two women who don't know I'm recognizing them. One I see, the other one I'm not sure she's here yet, but Karen Jarris Park. Karen, would you stand up, please? Thank you. Karen Jarris Park, speaking of gratitude, now she has her daughter with her today who's 17. And when she and her husband were expecting their daughter, her husband's Christian, Karen was raised Jewish. So Karen thought, well, how are we going to teach her? What are we going to teach her about life? What religious beliefs or spiritual ideologies? And Karen decided that she would do research on both her traditional religion of Judaism and Christianity and came up with a book that she's used to teach her daughter. Celebration of Both Worlds. It's called Celebrating the Best of Both Worlds, a Jewish Christian quick reference guide. It's not published, but I'm sure she's going to after she shared it with me because it is amazing. I've shared it with the Bible class last Sunday, and it's amazing. This was her way of showing gratitude for her upbringing, the faith that she grew up with, and gratitude for her husband's upbringing and how they're not different, but they work together. And at the same time, gratitude for her young daughter who she could teach various things to help her in life. A very simple act of gratitude. Very simple. And then Dr. Sonia Willis, soon to be published author of a memoir called Touch. I don't see Sonia yet. I know she'll be here. Oh, there she is, way back there. Stand up, Sonia. I asked Sonia's permission to share this some weeks ago. I had Sonia come up and join me on the stage when she was still in the writing stages. And she blessed me with, I'm very grateful, with the opportunity to write an introduction in the book because I got to know her mother. And of course, I know Sonia. And in this book, Sonia literally fasted from discontent. Her discontent was she didn't know her mother. She grew up with both her parents. She was very close to her dad, who died in '97. But her mother, there was a distance there that she never understood. And for some reason, it made Sonia feel less than, even though she followed in her mother's footsteps as an educator. So she fasted from discontent during the latter months of her mother's life. She realized she needed to find a way to touch her spirit, to have her touch her own. And she wrote this gratitude book. And I've watched the healing take place. And I know you all are going to want a copy of this book. It's amazing. But those final days with her mom, truly, they touched each other's hearts. So we're going to talk a little bit about Lent and the Lenten season. You know, Easter is the most religious Christian holiday of the year. There's no mention of it in Scripture. You can't find it in the Bible because it was a pagan ceremony celebrating the goddess of spring, Easter. And only in about 325 AD did the celebration start, did they start holding the Easter celebration. The Lenten season is the 40 days leading up to Easter, the day of the resurrection. And that happened in the year 33 of the Christian era. So you know the story. Jesus of Nazareth is a carpenter. He was a carpenter's son, and he learned his father's trade. And he began his ministry at the age of 30. As a young boy, he was always around the elders, studying and listening to them and learning. And then at about 30, he started his ministry. There was a huge political struggle going on. The Roman Empire ruled. And they got wind of this man, Jesus, who was getting huge crowds to come and hear him and doing some kind of magic tricks, you know, healing the sick and raising the dead. And they decided that they needed to get rid of this man, Jesus, because he was having a little bit too much control. And so, once the political struggle was on, Jesus knew his time was limited. It had been prophesied in the Old Testament in the book of Isaiah that this time would come. So, to fast forward, Easter began long after Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. So we begin with Ash Wednesday, 40 days, excluding Sundays, before Easter. So in the book, Fasting and Feasting, you'll find that there is a fast, feast word and essay for each day leading up to Saturday. And then on Sunday is a day of rest. So you won't find the fasting, feasting, you'll find something to inspire you to rest. Rest in the words, rest in gratitude. So in the Catholic faith, how many of you were reared in the Catholic faith? You know, and some Lutherans, in the Baptist faith, we didn't do this, but Ash Wednesday is the Wednesday that starts the Lenten season. Lenten meaning lengthening of days in Greek. So, you know, spring, our days are getting longer, nights are getting shorter. And so in the Catholic faith, they burn the ashes from the palm fronds of the previous year's Palm Sunday. The priest takes his thumb And each of the parishioners come forward, and he puts the thumb across, making the sign of the cross, saying, remember, you are dust. And making the sign going down, he says, and to dust you will return. Well, in case you don't know this, that's why I don't dust, because it could be somebody I know. The parishioners wear the ashes as a symbol of humility. So you may know some people who are Catholic, or you may have come across people who have the sign of the cross on their forehead in ashes because it's a symbol of their humility. It's also a symbol of their gratitude. So we're now in the third Sunday of the Lenten season. And in the traditional sense, some of you have been taught to give up something, right? How many of you are giving up something for Lent? Kathleen, you're the only one giving up something? What are you giving up? Chocolate. That's traditional. Most people who love chocolate, that's the first thing that comes off their list, and they can't wait till that 40 days is over, and they're going to eat all the Russell Stover and Panache and everybody else, Godiva, Andrews, everybody they can. So good luck with that. Some people give up alcohol or smoking, and some people give up barbecue potato chips, and it is difficult. But in the traditional sense, Lent is observed by giving up something. That's traditional. In the metaphysical and spiritual sense, it's not about giving up something physical. It's about fasting or giving up something mental and emotional. That's why this fasting book is fasting from something that you can relate to. In my case, fasting from discontent, something I'm not happy about, maybe I have no control over, and feasting on gratitude. Even being grateful for things I may not be happy about and have no control over. So the Bible makes no mention of it, but Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, refers to Easter in the terms of denials and affirmations. In Unity, we deny those things that we no longer wish to have power over us. Chocolate, potato chips, gossip. We deny things that are holding us back from being the person we're here to be. And we affirm those things that we know that we are, that we know that we have, that we know that are in our consciousness, that we're capable of. So denying what no longer serves you is fasting from it. That's the same as a fast. And affirming what serves your highest good is a feast. Wouldn't you like to feast on something really good for the next 30 days? So, Scripture tells us that to show gratitude, we can't pick and choose. We can't say, well, I'm grateful for this, but I really am not grateful for that. In 1 Thessalonians, we read, in everything give thanks. What Paul said was, finally, brethren, he's talking to all of us. Finally, this is the truth. This is what you need to hear. Pray without, rejoice always. He starts off by saying, rejoice always. That's why we always start and end our service with joyous music. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. And give thanks in everything. In everything, because even those things that you don't think are for your highest good may be something there that you're going to learn from. Let's say you grew up in a dysfunctional family, and maybe your parents were abusive, or maybe you didn't have the things that you needed or thought you needed or wanted. But you're here today because of that. Your accomplishments are because of that. So that's something to be grateful for. You've heard me talk about my dad and his alcoholism. Do you know I'm grateful for that? I am grateful because it taught me something. I don't want to be an alcoholic. And I know not everybody has that consciousness or that control, but it made me see something right up front and close and personal that I didn't want in my life. So that was a great teacher. Wayne Dyer talked about his greatest teacher was his father, who was absent from his life, all of his life. He never knew him, never got to meet him. And all he heard was all these negative things about his father. But that turned out to be his greatest teacher, because that taught him to forgive. even though by the time he met his father was in the grave. Wayne Dyer stood over his father's grave, planning to do something totally different. And if you ever watch the movie from Hay House, My Greatest Teacher, it's Wayne Dyer's story. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, instead of doing what he had planned to do on his father's grave, which wasn't going to be pretty, I don't have to go into detail, all of a sudden he felt this overwhelming sense of peace. And he said, I don't know why you left us, but you must have had a reason, and I forgive you. And that opened a door for Wayne that he never expected. His whole life changed, because when you're grateful, everything changes. Everything. You put on a different set of glasses. You see things from a whole different perspective. So I looked up, I had so many things coming at me this week on gratitude. Whenever I'm preparing a talk, gratitude, or whatever I'm talking about, just everything comes up, which I'm grateful for. And one thing was a 30-day challenge to make gratitude a habit by Heather Choate. And you can look this up online. But she says, the first 5 minutes in the morning once you're up and at 'em, write down what you're grateful for. And then commit to it all day. Commit all day, not just to those things express your gratitude, but look for things to be grateful for. And you know, when you start looking for something, it'll find you, because what you're seeking is seeking you. So if you're looking for something to be grateful for, just say it, just pronounce it. I'm going to look for something to be grateful for, and I'm telling you, it'll hit you in the face. She also says throughout the day, as you think of people that have blessed your life, send them a note. Even if they're no longer on this earth plane, write them a letter, even if you never mail it. And then she says, before you go to bed at night, write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. It's a very simple exercise, but I'm telling you, it works. To fast from discontent and feast on gratitude is like Maya Angelou said, let gratitude be the pillow on which you kneel to say your nightly prayers. I'm telling you, if you start being more grateful for what is in your life, everything you're seeking will start finding you. Everything that you need will show up. You are grateful when you express gratitude for everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly is here to bless you. So be grateful. Have you taken the time to be grateful today? It's not too late. Let's think about that as we move into meditation.